The great crystal chamber floated in space around the dead star called Kepler 442. Inside this massive station, beings from 47 different worlds gathered for their weekly meeting. The Galactic Council had met here every week for 3,000 years. Today felt like any other day. Admiral Zixthara looked at her glowing screen. She was a tall, blue-skinned woman with 4 arms and silver eyes. Her people, the Kethvar, were known for being good soldiers and careful planners. She read through the day's agenda with growing boredom. Mining disputes on the Outer Rim, trade route arguments between the Zephyrians and the Vactel. Same old problems, same old solutions. Around her, other council members talked in groups. The Zephyrians looked like giant insects with shiny green shells. They moved their arms quickly as they argued about shipping costs. The Vorthok sat quietly in their floating chairs. These ancient beings had been part of the council since the beginning. Their wrinkled gray faces showed no emotion as they watched the younger species argue. "The humans are stealing our trade routes," buzzed Coordinator Zelthus, the main Zephyrian speaker. His voice came through translation devices that made all languages sound the same. "Impossible," replied Elder Vorthak Prime Kethmore. His ancient voice was calm and tired. "The Orion Arm has no spacefaring species. Our scouts have confirmed this many times. No one from that area has ever reached faster than light travel." Admiral Zixthara nodded. Everyone knew the Orion Arm was a dead zone. The few planets there with life were too primitive to build spaceships. Some had barely discovered fire. The idea that anyone from there could build ships fast enough to steal trade routes was silly. The meeting continued as usual. The Vactel complained about the Zephyrians. The Zephyrians complained about everyone else. The smaller species stayed quiet and hoped no one would ask them for anything. Admiral Zixthara had seen this same scene hundreds of times. Her communication device beeped softly. A message from the sensor station appeared on her screen. She read it quickly, expecting another broken sensor report or space debris warning. Instead, her 4 eyes went wide. Long-range sensors detect massive energy signature approaching from Orion Arm. Size unknown. Composition unknown. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Admiral Zixthara read the message twice. Then she read it again. A massive energy signature from the Orion Arm? That was impossible. Nothing in that direction could produce the kind of energy their sensors could detect from this distance. She pressed a button to call the sensor station. "This is Admiral Zixthara. Confirm your last report." "Confirmed, Admiral," came the reply from Sensor Chief Graktor. "We have a massive contact approaching from the direction of the Sol system. Energy output is unlike anything in our databases. The readings are so high that 3 different teams have checked the equipment. Everything is working perfectly." "How massive?" Admiral Zixthara asked. She was starting to feel worried. "Larger than our biggest battleships, Admiral. Much larger. The energy signature suggests advanced propulsion systems. More advanced than anything we have seen before." Admiral Zixthara felt cold fear creep up her spine. She looked around the chamber. Everyone was still arguing about the same boring topics. No one else knew what was coming toward them. She stood up and activated the main communication system. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "Attention, council members. We have a situation that requires immediate attention." The arguing stopped. 47 pairs of eyes, and various other sensing organs, turned toward her. The chamber became quiet for the first time in hours. Long-range sensors have detected a massive unknown vessel approaching from the Orion Arm. Estimated time of arrival is 6 hours. The chamber erupted in noise. Everyone started talking at once. The Zephyrians buzzed loudly. The Vactel hissed. Even the normally calm Vorthak looked surprised. "Impossible," shouted Coordinator Zelthus. "Nothing from that region has the technology for space travel." Elder Kethmore leaned forward in his floating chair. His ancient face showed the first emotion Admiral Zixthara had seen from him in years. "Send me the sensor data immediately," he said in a voice that made everyone stop talking. Admiral Zixthara transferred the files to his personal system. The old Vorthak studied the numbers for several minutes. The chamber stayed quiet, while everyone waited. Finally, Elder Kethmore looked up. His silver eyes were filled with something that looked like fear. These readings suggest a vessel with technology far beyond our current capabilities. The energy output alone indicates propulsion systems that our scientists consider impossible. Should we scramble the defense fleet? Admiral Zixthara asked. Yes, Elder Kethmore said immediately. Alert all military commanders. Bring every available ship to defensive positions around this station. And send a priority message to all Council worlds. They need to know what is happening here. As the orders went out, Admiral Zixthara noticed that Elder Kethmore was accessing very old files on his personal system. Ancient records that she had never seen before. When she tried to read them, her security clearance was not high enough. Elder Kethmore, what are those records? She asked. The ancient Vorthok looked at her with tired eyes. Very old warnings, Admiral. Stories that our ancestors told us about the dangers that sleep in the dark between stars. I always thought they were just myths. And now? Admiral Zixthara asked. Now I pray that they still are, Elder Kethmore replied. Around the chamber, emergency lights began to flash. The peaceful routine of the Council was broken. Whatever was coming toward them from the dead zone of space would arrive soon, and none of them were ready for what they might find. The great crystal chamber, which had seen 3,000 years of boring meetings, was about to witness the most important day in galactic history. But no one knew it yet. Space itself seemed to tear apart. Admiral Zixthara watched her main display screen as reality twisted and folded in front of the Council station. Colors that had no names swirled in a growing circle of impossible light. Energy readings on her instruments climbed so high that several systems shut down to protect themselves. All ships, maintain defensive positions, she ordered through her communication device. Around the station, 200 Council warships waited in formation. Their weapons were charged and ready. But Admiral Zixthara felt like she was preparing to fight a storm with a stick. The circle of twisted space grew larger. Then something began to push through it. First came the nose of the ship. It was black as deep space, and shaped like a spear point. The metal looked wrong somehow, as if it bent light around it. Strange blue energy flowed along lines cut into the hull. How big is that thing? Whispered Sensor Chief Graktor through the communication system. Admiral Zixthara checked her readings. The numbers could not be right. 12 kilometers long, she said, hardly believing her own words. More of the ship emerged from the tier in space. The hull was covered in weapons. Rows and rows of weapon systems that Admiral Zixthara did not recognize. The largest Council battleship was 3 kilometers long. This monster was 4 times bigger. Admiral, the gravitational readings are off the charts, reported Chief Science Officer Velkara. That ship's mass is affecting our orbit. How is it even holding together? The tier in space closed with a sound like thunder, even though sound could not travel in space. The massive ship floated there, silent and waiting. Its hull was marked with symbols that meant nothing to any Council species. Along its sides, letters spelled out words in an unknown language. UNSC, Defiant Resolve. Letters, Admiral, called Communications Officer Tharjan. We're receiving a transmission. It's on all frequencies. Put it through, Admiral Zixthara ordered. Static filled the communication system for a moment. Then a clear, calm voice spoke in perfect galactic standard. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Space Command vessel Defiant Resolve. We come in peace, representing the species known as humanity. We understand you are the local governing body. We request formal first contact protocols. The bridge fell silent. Admiral Zixthara stared at her communication device as if it had just spoken to her in a dead language. Did that ship just talk to us? Asked Chief Science Officer Velkara. In perfect galactic standard, Admiral Zixthara replied. How is that possible? No species learns our language that quickly. Through the bridge windows, she could see the massive human ship. It hung in space like a sleeping predator. Every line of its design spoke of violence and war. This was not a ship built for exploration or trade. This was a weapon with engines attached. Admiral, the Council is demanding an immediate report, said Communications Officer Tharjan. Admiral Zixthara switched to the Emergency Council channel. Elder Kethmore's ancient face appeared on her screen immediately. "Report, Admiral," he said. "The vessel has arrived. 12 kilometers long. Mass readings suggest construction materials unknown to our science. Weapon systems that our computers cannot identify. And Elder Kethmore, they speak perfect galactic standard." Elder Kethmore's silver eyes grew wide. Behind him, Admiral Zixthara could see the council chamber in chaos. Species representatives were shouting and pointing at their own screens. "Did you say 12 kilometers?" Elder Kethmore asked. "Confirmed. Our largest battleships look like escort fighters next to this thing." "Cold. What are their demands?" "They request formal first contact protocols. They claim to come in peace." Elder Kethmore was quiet for a long moment. "Admiral, I'm sending you data files that have been sealed for 3,000 years. Read them quickly. I fear we are about to learn why our ancestors were afraid of the dark between stars." The files appeared on Admiral Zixthara's personal screen. As she read, her forearms began to shake. The ancient Vorthak texts spoke of a species from the cruel star Sol, warriors without equal, a race that fought wars that would make other species weep. The files called them the guardians who rise when needed, and the children of endless war. "Admiral Zixthara," came the calm voice from the human ship again. "We are waiting for your response. We understand you may need time to process our arrival. We will maintain position here until you are ready." Admiral Zixthara activated her communication system. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Zixthara of the Galactic Council Defense Force. You have entered Council space without permission. State your intentions." "Admiral, our intentions are peaceful contact and exchange of information. We have been monitoring your communications for several years and believe we can benefit from mutual cooperation." Several years. The humans had been watching them for years without being detected. Admiral Zixthara felt cold fear crawl up her spine. "How many ships accompany you?" she asked. "Defiant Resolve is operating independently on an exploration mission. We are alone. One ship." They had sent one ship to make first contact with an entire galactic civilization. Either these humans were incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Looking at the size and obvious power of their vessel, Admiral Zixthara suspected it was the former. "Human vessel, maintain your current position. Do not approach the station. We are consulting our protocols." "Understood, Admiral. We will wait." The communication ended. Admiral Zixthara looked around her bridge. Her crew stared back at her with expressions of fear and confusion. Outside the windows, the massive human battleship waited patiently. Its hull gleamed with unknown metals and impossible technologies. "Chief Science Officer Velkara," Admiral Zixthara said, "I want a full analysis of that ship. Every sensor we have. I want to know what we're dealing with." "Yes, Admiral. Though I should warn you, our scans are having difficulty penetrating their hull. Whatever they're made of, it's not in our material databases." Admiral Zixthara nodded. She activated her emergency channel to all Council worlds. "This is Admiral Zixthara, with a Code 7 emergency broadcast. We have made contact with an unknown species calling themselves humans. They possess technology far beyond our current capabilities. All Council worlds should prepare for significant changes." As she spoke, she watched the human ship through her bridge windows. 12 kilometers of advanced technology and unknown weapons, the most powerful warship she had ever seen. And according to their own words, it was just an exploration vessel. The council chamber had never seen such chaos. Elder Kethmore sat in his floating chair, watching the greatest minds of 47 species try to understand what they were facing. Xenobiologists huddled around their screens, running test after test. Military advisors calculated combat scenarios on their battle computers. Trade officials tried to estimate the economic impact of this new species. All of their conclusions were terrifying. "The biological scans are complete," announced Dr. Ithysisvara, the council's chief xenobiologist. She was a Zephyrian, her green shell reflecting the lights of the chamber as she moved nervously. "The crew of this vessel are apex predators. Their muscle density is 3 times greater than any known species. Their reaction times are faster than our best military pilots. Their adrenal response systems are designed for extended combat situations. Elder Kethmore felt ancient fear crawl through his bones. Explain what that means for those of us who are not scientists. It means, Dr. Ithysisvara said slowly, that every single crew member on that ship is a natural-born killer. Their entire species evolved to hunt and fight. They are biologically designed for war. The chamber filled with worried whispers. The Vactel representatives hissed softly to each other. The smaller species moved closer together for comfort. What about their technology? Elder Kethmore asked. Chief Technology Analyst Mekthor stepped forward. He was one of the Kethvar, with the same blue skin as Admiral Zyx Thara, but covered in cybernetic implants that helped him interface with computer systems. Honored Elder, their faster-than-light drive operates on principles we don't understand. Our best theoretical physicists say it should be impossible. They're literally folding space-time around their ship. The energy requirements alone should tear apart any known hull material. But their hull is intact, Elder Kethmore pointed out. Yes, sir. Which means they've solved material science problems we didn't even know existed. The exotic matter composing their hull doesn't match anything in our databases. And their energy shields, Mekthor paused, checking his readings again. Their energy shields are bending space around the ship. We can barely get sensor readings through them. Military advisor Grathek spoke up from across the chamber. He was a massive Vactel with thick armor plates covering his body and scars from many battles. What about their weapons? That's the most concerning part, Mekthor admitted. Our computers identify at least 40 different weapon systems on their hull. Energy output suggests they could punch through our strongest armor with ease. But the really scary part is their cybersecurity. What do you mean? Elder Kethmore asked. We've tried everything to get information from their computer systems. Our best cyber warfare specialists have attempted over 300 intrusion methods. Nothing works. Their quantum encryption is so advanced that we can't even find a way to start breaking it. Elder Kethmore closed his silver eyes and tried to process this information. A species of natural warriors with impossible technology and unbreakable computer security. And they claim to come in peace. How many ships like this do they have? He asked quietly. Unknown, sir. But there are indicators that suggest massive industrial capacity. The materials and energy requirements to build this one ship would require the output of entire star systems, yet they speak of it as a single exploration vessel. The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. If this was just one ship, and it was only meant for exploration, what did their actual war fleet look like? Admiral Zyx Thara's voice came through the communication system. Elder Kethmore, the humans are requesting permission to send a small diplomatic shuttle to the station. They want to begin formal first contact procedures. Elder Kethmore looked around the chamber. He saw fear in every face, on every shell, behind every optical sensor. But he also saw curiosity. Despite their terror, these beings wanted to learn about this new species. What does our military assessment say about engaging this vessel if negotiations fail? Elder Kethmore asked military advisor Grathek. The scarred Vactel checked his combat computer one more time. Honored Elder, our entire defense fleet working together would have approximately a 15% chance of defeating this single ship. And that's assuming they don't have any weapons or capabilities we haven't detected yet. 15%. Elder Kethmore repeated. Against one ship. Yes, sir. One ship that they describe as an exploration vessel. Elder Kethmore thought about the ancient texts he had been reading. The warnings about the children of the cruel star Sol. The stories of warriors who fought wars that consumed entire star systems. He had always believed these were myths, stories told to frighten young ones. Now he was beginning to think they might be historical records. Allow their shuttle to dock, he decided, but increase security to maximum levels. I want every weapon on the station charged and ready. Sir. Dr. Ithysisvara spoke up again. There's something else. We've been analyzing their language patterns and cultural references in their transmissions. What did you find? They reference something called the Treaty of Terra Nova. Based on context, it seems to be an agreement that ended their last major war. They speak of it as recent history, something that happened 30 years ago. Elder Keth Moore felt his heart's skip beats. What kind of war? The references suggest fleet actions involving thousands of ships on each side. They mention something called glassing entire star systems. They speak of this as if it was a normal part of warfare for their species. The chamber erupted in panicked voices again. The idea of warfare on such a massive scale was beyond anything the Council had ever experienced. Their own conflicts involved dozens of ships at most. The humans spoke of thousands as if it was routine. Honored Elder, Admiral Zeke Thara's voice came through the communication system again. The human shuttle has launched. Estimated arrival in 20 minutes. Also, sir, they've sent a cultural exchange package ahead of their arrival. What kind of package? Elder Keth Moore asked. Art, music, literature, and military history. They seem eager to share information about their civilization. Elder Keth Moore laughed, but there was no humor in it. They're sharing their military history. As a cultural exchange, military advisor Grathek checked his readings again. Sir, I'm updating our combat assessments based on this new information. If their military history is accurate, humanity has spent the last several centuries in almost constant warfare. They've developed combat doctrines based on total victory through overwhelming force. And now they want to be friends, Elder Keth Moore said softly. Apparently so, sir. Elder Keth Moore looked around the chamber one more time. 47 species had gathered here for 3,000 years to argue about trade routes and mining rights. Their biggest military concern had been preventing small conflicts from becoming larger ones. Now, they were about to meet a species that considered the destruction of entire star systems to be normal military procedure. A species that had built ships capable of fighting their entire fleet single-handedly. A species that called such vessels exploration ships. And these warriors claimed to come in peace. Prepare for the diplomatic reception, Elder Keth Moore ordered. And pray to whatever gods you believe in that they really do want to be friends. Captain Sarah Chen stepped off the shuttle and into the Council Station's docking bay. She was tall for a human, with short black hair and calm brown eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Her uniform was simple but well-made, dark blue with silver insignia. Behind her came 4 Marines in light combat armor. Elder Keth Moore watched through security cameras as the humans looked around the docking bay with obvious curiosity. Their body language was relaxed, almost casual. These were not beings preparing for violence. Yet every movement showed the controlled grace of trained warriors. Their equipment scans are remarkable, reported Security Chief Vorthek. Those aren't just uniforms. The materials are some kind of advanced composite that could stop our small arms fire. Their Marines carry weapons that our computers can't fully analyze, but they're keeping them sealed and powered down. A show of good faith, Elder Keth Moore observed, or confidence that they don't need weapons to defend themselves, Security Chief Vorthek replied. The human delegation was escorted through the station corridors by a full honor guard. Captain Chen walked beside Elder Keth Moore, her Marines following behind with the same easy alertness that made everyone nervous. She seemed genuinely interested in the architecture and technology she saw. Your station is impressive, Captain Chen said through the translation device. The gravitational control systems alone represent some elegant engineering solutions. Elder Keth Moore was surprised. You understand gravitational control? And Amanda, basic principles, yes. We use similar systems on our larger installations, though I suspect your methods are more refined than ours. We tend to favor brute force approaches over elegance. They entered the main diplomatic chamber, where representatives from all 47 council species waited. Captain Chen looked around the room with obvious fascination. This is remarkable, she said. 47 different species working together peacefully. On Earth, we have trouble getting different human cultures to agree on trade policies. Earth is your home world? Elder Keth Moore asked. Yes. Though humanity has spread to over 400 worlds now, the expansion happened faster than anyone expected once we developed reliable, faster-than-light travel. Dr. Ethys Isvara leaned forward. 400 worlds. In how much time? About 2.5 centuries since we left our home system. We've been exploring and colonizing for roughly 200 years. The chamber fell silent. 400 worlds in 2 centuries was an expansion rate that defied belief. Most council species took millennia to spread to a handful of systems. Captain Chen, Elder Kethmore said carefully, "Our scientists are curious about your population numbers. Current estimate is around 200 billion spread across our territories, though the census data is always a few years behind, with new colonies being established regularly." More silence. The largest council species numbered in the tens of billions across all their worlds. Humanity had managed to become one of the most populous civilizations in the galaxy in just a few centuries. Military advisor Grathek spoke up. "Captain, we've detected references to something called the Treaty of Terra Nova in your cultural transmissions. Could you explain this?" Captain Chen's expression became more serious. The Treaty of Terra Nova ended the last major conflict within human space. The Centauri War was difficult for everyone involved. Both the Terran Federation and the Outer Colony Alliance realized that continuing the fighting would only lead to mutual destruction. "What kind of numbers were involved in this conflict?" Grathek asked. At its peak, each side fielded about 3,000 ships of various classes. The war lasted 4 years and resulted in significant casualties and infrastructure damage. 2 star systems were rendered uninhabitable before both sides agreed to negotiate. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. 3,000 ships per side was larger than the entire Council Defense Force, and the humans spoke of it as a regrettable but finished chapter in their history. "Captain Chen," Elder Kethmore said slowly, "how do your people view warfare now?" "As something to be avoided when possible, but prepared for when necessary." The Treaty of Terra Nova established the United Nations Space Command as a unified human military to prevent internal conflicts. We've spent the last 30 years focused on exploration and scientific advancement rather than fighting each other. "But you maintain military forces," Military Advisor Grathik observed. "Of course. The galaxy is a dangerous place. There are always threats that require military response. Pirates, hostile alien species, natural disasters that require evacuation support. Military force is a tool, like any other. The key is using it properly." Elder Kethmore studied the human captain carefully. "What would you consider a proper use of military force?" "Protecting innocent people, defending against aggression, maintaining the peace that allows civilization to flourish." Captain Chen paused. Quote, "We believe strongly that those with the power to protect others have a responsibility to do so." Dr. Ithisvara asked, "What if a species attacked human territory?" They would be stopped." Captain Chen's voice remained calm, but something in her tone made everyone in the chamber feel cold. "We don't look for fights, but we don't run from them either. Any aggressor would find themselves facing the full response of human military forces." "The full response," Elder Kethmore repeated. "How many ships would that involve?" "Current active fleet strength is classified, but I can tell you that the Defiant Resolve is one of 47 Titangent-class battlecruisers. We also maintain several thousand smaller vessels across all our territories." The numbers hit the chamber like a physical blow. 47 ships the size of the monster currently orbiting their station. Thousands of smaller vessels that were probably still larger than anything the Council possessed. "Captain Chen," Elder Kethmore said carefully, "why did humanity choose to contact us peacefully? With your obvious military advantages, you could have simply demanded our surrender." Captain Chen looked genuinely confused by the question. "Why would we do that? You haven't threatened us or anyone under our protection. You seem to be a peaceful civilization managing your own affairs successfully. We're hoping to learn from you and share what we've learned in our own expansion." "What would you like to learn from us?" Dr. Ithisvara asked. "Diplomatic techniques for managing multi-species cooperation, cultural exchange programs, scientific knowledge that we might have missed in our rapid expansion, art, music, literature, from 47 different civilizations." Captain Chen smiled. Humans are naturally curious. We love learning about new things. And what would you share with us? Elder Kethmore asked. Medical technologies that might extend lifespans across different species. Manufacturing techniques for space-based construction. Scientific data from our explorations. Cultural exchanges. If you're interested, we've also developed some effective methods for dealing with common galactic threats. What kind of threats? Military Advisor Grathek asked. Cosmic phenomena that endanger inhabited systems. Hostile, automated systems left behind by extinct civilizations. The occasional species that believes conquest is preferable to cooperation. Captain Chen's voice hardened slightly on the last point. Elder Kethmore realized something important. The humans weren't just offering friendship to the Council. They were offering protection. These warriors, who could crush any Council species without effort, were volunteering to defend them against threats they might not even know existed. Captain Chen, he said slowly. What would humanity want in return for this cooperation? Nothing more than the same cooperation in return. We believe that civilizations working together accomplish more than civilizations fighting each other. We've seen what happens when intelligent species spend their time and resources on warfare instead of progress. Elder Kethmore looked around the chamber. 47 species that had spent 3,000 years arguing about trade routes and mining rights. Now they were being offered partnership with a civilization that could protect them from threats they didn't even know existed, and the only price was friendship. Captain Chen, Elder Kethmore said finally, I believe the Galactic Council would be very interested in discussing formal diplomatic relations with humanity. Captain Chen smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. 3 days of emergency council sessions had passed. Elder Kethmore sat alone in his private chamber, reviewing the final vote tallies on his personal display. The numbers were clear, but the implications were staggering. 47 species. 47 unanimous votes in favor of immediate full membership for humanity. In 3,000 years of Council history, no species had ever been granted full membership status immediately upon first contact. New species typically spent decades as observers, learning Council procedures and proving their commitment to peaceful cooperation. But these were not typical circumstances. A soft chime indicated someone requesting entry to his chamber. Come, Elder Kethmore said. Admiral Thara entered, her forearms carrying data tablets, and her blue face showing exhaustion from the long negotiations. The final security assessments are complete, honored Elder. And what do they tell us? Elder Kethmore asked, though he already knew the answer. Every simulation confirms the same result. If humanity chose conquest over cooperation, they could sweep through Council space within 1 standard year. Their single battlecruiser could engage our entire defense fleet with favorable odds, and they have at least 46 more just like it. Elder Kethmore nodded slowly. And yet Captain Chen spent yesterday afternoon in our botanical gardens, asking Dr. Velthus about adaptive pollination techniques for low-gravity environments. She seemed genuinely fascinated by the research. Admiral Thara agreed. Her Marines were equally interested in our cultural museum. One of them spent 3 hours studying Zephyrian metal sculpture techniques. Warriors who appreciate art, Elder Kethmore mused. Perhaps that should have been our first clue about their true nature. The door chimed again. This time, it was Dr. Vara, carrying her own collection of data files. Doctor, Elder Kethmore greeted her. What have your biological studies revealed? Something remarkable, honored Elder. While it's true that humans are apex predators by evolution, their social development has channeled those instincts toward protection rather than conquest. Their family structures, their pack-bonding behaviors, their willingness to sacrifice for others, their natural guardians. Admiral Thara looked up from her tablets. Guardians? Dr. Vara nodded. Their entire military philosophy is based on protection and defense. Yes, they're capable of incredible violence, but they direct that violence toward defending others. They've evolved to be the galaxy's immune system. Elder Kethmore felt something cold touch his ancient hearts. Doctor, I need you to review some very old files with me. He activated his personal archive and pulled up the sealed records that had been gathering digital dust for millennia. The ancient Vorthak texts appeared on the shared display. These are prophecies from before the Council was founded, Elder Kethmore explained. Our ancestors spoke of a time when darkness would threaten all life in the galaxy. They said that guardians would rise from the cruel star to stand against extinction. Dr. Ithis Vera read the ancient text carefully. Honored Elder. This describes humans perfectly. The references to children forged by war and those who choose to protect rather than conquer. It's as if these prophecies were written about humanity specifically. Perhaps they were, Elder Kethmore said quietly. Our ancestors had ways of seeing far into the future. They may have known that this day would come. Admiral Zeekthara activated her communication device. Elder Kethmore, Captain Chen is requesting a private meeting with you. She says there's something important she needs to discuss before the formal membership ceremony. Send her in, Elder Kethmore replied. Captain Chen entered the chamber a few minutes later. She moved with the same controlled grace that all humans seem to possess. But her expression was more serious than usual. Elder Kethmore, thank you for seeing me. There's something I need to tell you before we proceed with the formal agreements. What is it, Captain? The reason humanity contacted the Council now, after watching your communications for several years, is that our long-range sensors have detected something approaching from outside the galaxy, something large and artificial that doesn't match any known civilization signatures. Elder Kethmore felt his worst fears being confirmed. How long do we have? Based on current trajectory and speed estimates, approximately 5 years until it reaches the outer rim of Council space. We don't know if it's hostile, but our experience suggests that unidentified objects approaching from dark space are rarely friendly. Admiral Zeekthara looked up from her tablets. Is this why you built such massive warships? Partly, yes. Humanity has learned that the galaxy contains threats that require significant military capabilities to address. We've encountered automated war machines from extinct civilizations, hostile entities that consume entire star systems, and other phenomena that peaceful species can't handle alone. Dr. Ithiasvara studied the human captain carefully. You're not just offering us friendship. You're offering to protect us from threats we don't even know exist. If necessary, yes, Captain Chen replied. But we'd prefer to work together. United civilizations are stronger than individual ones. The Council represents 47 species with different knowledge, skills, and perspectives. That diversity could be crucial for dealing with unknown threats. Elder Kethmore accessed his communication system and sent a priority message to all Council representatives. Within minutes, the formal session was called to order. The vote on humanity's membership status has already been decided, Elder Kethmore announced to the assembled Council. But now, we must vote on something even more important. Captain Chen has informed us that an unidentified object is approaching from outside the galaxy. We must decide how to respond to this potential threat. The chamber erupted in worried voices. For several minutes, representatives argued and demanded more information. Finally, Military Advisor Grathik stood to speak. Honored Elder, if Captain Chen's people are willing to help defend Council space against unknown threats, I move that we accept their protection and offer whatever support we can provide in return. I second that motion, called out Coordinator Zelthus. If the humans can build ships like the Defiant Resolve, we need them on our side. The vote was quick and unanimous. Elder Kethmore felt relief and fear in equal measures. Captain Chen, he said, the Galactic Council formally accepts humanity as a full member species with all rights and responsibilities. We also accept your offer of mutual defense against external threats. Captain Chen smiled. Thank you, Elder Kethmore. I'll inform my superiors that the negotiations were successful. The Defiant Resolve will remain here as humanity's permanent diplomatic vessel. Just one ship? Admiral Zeekthara asked. For now, Captain Chen replied. Though if this unknown contact proves hostile, we may need to position additional assets in Council space. Elder Kethmore thought about the ancient prophecies again. Guardians rising to face the darkness. Warriors who protected rather than conquered. Perhaps his ancestors had been right about humanity's destiny. 6 months later, long-range sensors detected the first clear images of the approaching object. It was artificial, larger than any known space station, and heading directly toward inhabited systems. Captain Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiant Resolve, reviewing the tactical data with Admiral Zeke Thara. Around them, Council defense fleets were taking up positions alongside human reinforcements that had arrived from Terran space. "How many ships are coming?" Admiral Zeke Thara asked. "The Third Fleet is moving into position," Captain Chen replied. 15 Titangen-class battlecruisers, 40 heavy cruisers, and 100 escort vessels, plus support ships for extended operations. Admiral Zeke Thara looked at the numbers and smiled for the first time in months. Whatever was coming toward them from the darkness between galaxies, it would find the combined forces of the Galactic Council and humanity waiting. The Council was no longer alone in the galaxy. The Guardians had risen, just as the ancient prophecies had foretold, and they were ready to defend everything that civilization had built together.